It's time now for a new episode of Field Forward, powered by Pioneer. Joining us now for a conversation, Pioneer field agronomist in Central Iowa, Matthew Vandehar is with us here today. And Matthew, it's good to talk with you. Thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah, of course.
Well, let's start. How did the 2025 growing season go for farmers in your area there in Central Iowa? Do you have any preliminary yield numbers? How have things been going during harvest season? What could you tell us about the 2025 growing season?
Yeah, here in Central Iowa, 2025 was pretty wild. It was a little bit of a wet season compared to the last couple dry seasons. And then Southern rust really just shocked us here in Iowa, especially Central Iowa, something we've never seen before. And so, we've learned quite a few things yet this year, but in general, if I talk about corn, we've had some ups and downs, especially if you didn't spray fungicide with Southern rust coming in. But in general, corn's been good, but not near as good as the last couple of years that we've had some really impressive yields. Last time a field was corn, or even just compared to last year. So in general, yeah, we're still trying to get through some harvest here, but we've had just a mix of emotions with different yield ranges.
Any final yield data that's rolled in as we've gone through harvest here at all? Anything, any preliminary numbers, I guess I would say?
Yeah, if I had to just look at my counties in central Iowa, I would say a number that probably catches some of the averages right now with some harvest to go. I would say 230 range would catch it. We certainly have some really productive ground, some really high management operations that definitely sprayed fungicide or even sprayed it twice that are definitely pushing some 250 plus. But we also have some that's poorly drained, rough fertility, no fungicide that's below 200. So again, quite the range this year, and some of it just was tied to fungicide applications with the Southern rust.
All right. Well, Matthew, let's talk about some Pioneer products. How did Pioneer brand Vorseed Enlist and Power Core Enlist corn perform for farmers in your area this growing season?
Yeah, I think if you just start looking at some of our plots on Pioneer.com and start looking at what's sorting to the top, it's nice to see those Power Core Enlist and Vorceed Enlist products just float to the top there, even against some really impressive hybrids we've had the last couple of years. So the consistency they're having this year, and a year that was different from the last couple, and in a year where we had some disease pressure we weren't expecting and may not expect again, it's nice to see that consistency with some of those hybrids.
Well, looking back, you kind of mentioned it with certain challenges. You mentioned southern rust. So talk about specific weather events, pests, diseases, challenges that growers faced in your area, and maybe what steps helped them overcome some of these challenges this year.
Yeah, well, we can't forget that we had some record amounts of rainfall in June, July. So that event alone of some saturated feeds just caused some issues where it reminds us the importance of tile and drainage where we can get out there. But then certainly southern rust. If I had to go over again, I would have had to spray twice and ground rig everything. We can't do that necessarily logistically on all fields, but that's how bad the southern rust came in. And we have also picked all the most tolerant hybrids for southern rust. But again, that's something we just learned that we've seen this before in central Iowa. We've seen southern rust, but we've never seen it take out a crop like it did in certain areas. And so yeah, we've had some lessons learned on fungicide and timing of applications, and we still got some more lessons to learn here as harvest finishes. But certainly something we won't take for granted next year or year before.
Well, and you mentioned as harvest finishes up, as harvest is well underway, what is a variable you're currently monitoring? I know there's a lot of them out there, whether we're talking grain moisture or stalk strength, things of that nature. How will some of that data influence post-harvest recommendations for your growers, Matthew?
Yeah, I would say that, one of the last things as guys finish up, we are watching stock integrity and trying to watch those fields to prioritize harvest. But as far as taking something away from this year, I think the biggest thing, and we talked about enough, Southern rust may impact a hybrid significantly different than it had the last prior years. You might have had a hybrid that was your best hybrid last year, and because of a low tolerance score, it was just middle of the road or below the average. And you might have the opposite. You might have a hybrid that was maybe a tough acre hybrid that's maybe not supposed to be your best hybrid. It could have been your best hybrid this year because it had a really good southern rust score and was managed well. So we're trying to make sure we don't, overthink this year's performance based on a variable that we shouldn't expect to happen. Southern rust doesn't overwinter here, so we shouldn't have to worry about it on an annual basis. But it could certainly happen again. But we also want to make sure we're making sound decisions across all different environments and all different yield levels that we would experience in an average year. And this year was by far not an average year. So still learning from it.
Well, where can growers go if they want to learn more information, want to talk with a Pioneer representative, et cetera, et cetera? I'm sure online is a great way to get started, right, Matthew?
Yeah, Pioneer.com has a lot of plot data and some of our latest learnings, and certainly some social media handles you can look up for Pioneer.
Any other final thoughts you would have for folks as we close out this episode of Field Forward? Anything you'd mention or reiterate today?
Yeah, there's a lot of motion with this year and tough commodity prices and something that we didn't expect in Iowa. Yeah, I think make sure we take a full step back and understanding that we got to look at multi-year management and history before we make some quick decisions is very important.
All right. Well, we appreciate the time and the insight with that Pioneer field agronomist in Central Iowa, Matthew Vandehar. Thanks for joining us here on Field Forward, brought to you by Pioneer. We appreciate it.
Thank you.